Yeah, listen to him sing. Welcome to another fine episode of snow biking. This episode, I'm going to talk about the trio a little bit. That part's not going to come up until about the 4-minute mark. Until we get to that point, you can see some of this super steep stuff. I love the super steep stuff. This is by far my favorite activity to do snow biking. Just getting into the super steep. This little section right here, the video didn't do it justice, but I was only about 5 feet away from some logs. I just didn't have a good enough run to cross those logs. Did a nice maneuver there, changing direction on a super steep hill in the trees. That's always fun and technical. Anyways, this was a fun night ride we did. It was February 18th, I think. It was a Thursday. Went out with my good buddies Joe and Baden. And I am on my 19 450 with a 22 Riot 3 Pro. Baden is on a 16 KTM 450 with a 16 Yeti. And Joe is on an 18 Yamaha with a 20 Riot LE. Also a really good kit. Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of talk about the differences between those two bikes here in a second. I rode them back to back a little bit. But before we get to that point, had to show some of this just gnarly terrain. This stuff is so fun. The Riot 3 can pull lines that I'm just not used to pulling. You start going and you think, oh, I need to cut out on the hill, and then you go, nope, I'm just going to turn left and go straight up instead, and it totally pulls it. It's so awesome. Some of this stuff was so steep that the ski and everything just started sliding down the hill. When you get in situations like that, you got to gas it to keep the ski going forward. That is so sick.
So fun. I just love where these can go.
I know.
It's like so much cooler than a snowmobile.
Yeah.
It's funny, we're always talking about how much more fun snow bikes are than snowmobiles. We get into areas like this, and I know some pros can get into places like this. You're not going to find any amateur snowmobiler in a place like this, but you can find us amateur snow bikers in this extreme terrain all the time. That's the cool thing about it, is snow bikes can get pretty much anywhere with relative ease. You do got to be a little bit aggressive on the throttle. So there's Joe on his 20 Riot LE. Nice little wheelie. That's where the Riot 3 just pulled right ahead, went up the hill. Joe could have made it up too, he just didn't try. Here in a second, I am going to hop on Joe's bike and just compare the two bikes. It's a good comparison because both bikes are essentially identical Yamaha's. There goes Joe taking off on my bike, and I am on his bike. Now his bike, I actually can't remember if he had a TSS on it or not. I was going to say the only differences between our two bikes is the trio and the kits, but he might have had the TSS. I'm currently running the solid strut, but actually just today, which is February 20th, I put my TSS on just for fun to see what it's like when the Riot 3. Anyways, number one thing I noticed on Joe's bike is it is a 120, so it is shorter, and it just felt a little bit more nimble. I like that. But that 2.5-inch track versus the 3-inch track, big difference. The 3-inch track totally hops up on the snow, grabs traction, floats very well, and just goes, where this 2.5-inch track doesn't get quite the same amount of traction, and you gotta gas it to really get going. But the thing I loved about Joe's bike was the trio. I've ridden the trios before. I noticed again on this night that the trio is plush where it needs to be plush, and it's stiff where it needs to be stiff. It's plush for those first few inches, but as soon as you start
to do jumps and stuff, it's nice and stiff and it provides good hold up. The difference between his bike and my bike has just heavy springs in it. I got 0.62 springs in there with 10 weight oil. I'm gonna have to pause it right here for a second because I'm talking too long. The difference is my bike is just stiff all the time. So it's stiff and it's pretty decent for jumps, although if you watched a few videos earlier, stock valving, regardless of whether or not you got heavy springs or heavy oil, is not good for really big jumps. The heavy spring simply just holds the bike up, but it's not going to hold you up in a really big hit. Now let's get back to this little razor we found here. Yeah, when we came riding up the mountain road, we ran into 3 teenagers walking down the road, and mind you, it's like 9 o'clock at night. And of course, they were out joyriding in their parents' razor, and they left it on the mountain. So that's the end of this vlog episode. Hope you enjoyed. More to come.
Kids.
Boneheads.